Time usually marches in a straight, obedient line, 1 second neatly following the next. But every so often, a fracture appears, a seam, a door hiding inside an ordinary moment. Step through, and memory echoes forward, greeting moments that haven't yet arrived. The future loops back to meet you, and the familiar becomes just slightly, unmistakably wrong. Welcome, traveler, to the door between 2 seconds. Step carefully. The moment you entered is already behind you. Episode 12. The Bell That Refused to Ring. Tomas did not look back when he stepped onto the remembering road. Not because he was brave, because if he did, he would see his brother still standing at the fork, hands tight on the straps of his pack, jaw set in that familiar way that meant a decision had already hardened inside him. Tomas knew that look. It was the look Alric wore when endurance had replaced thought. The remembering road felt no different beneath Tomas's boots. That was the first cruelty of it. Stone was stone. Dirt was dirt. The world did not announce when it had begun keeping accounts. He walked until the mountain wind softened and the land sloped downward into valleys dotted with farms. Smoke rose from chimneys. Bells rang in the distance, ordinary ones this time, calling people to supper or prayer or sleep. And yet something tugged at him. Not forward, not backward, sideways. The first village he reached was called Halden's Ford, or it had been. The sign at the road's edge bore 3 names scratched over one another, each half erased by time and argument. A woman stood by the well, staring into the water as if it were accusing her. "You're blocking the road," she said without looking up. "I'm sorry," Tomas replied, stepping aside. She blinked, startled, then frowned. "No," she said slowly. "You're not the one. You just feel like him." "Like who?" Tomas asked. She hesitated, hand tightening on the rope. "My husband," she said. "Or the man I was supposed to marry. Or the boy who promised me something once. I can't tell anymore." The bucket slipped from her grasp, splashing water across the stones. Neither of them moved to retrieve it. "That road," she said, finally looking at Tomas. Her eyes were tired in a way that had nothing to do with age. "It makes people remember wrong." "It makes people remember fully," Tomas said, though he wasn't certain yet. She laughed once, sharp and humorless. "If this is full remembrance, I'd like a refund." In Halden's Ford, people argued politely and relentlessly. A baker insisted he had already paid his taxes for the year twice. A man accused his brother of stealing land that neither could remember purchasing. A priest gave sermons that ended without blessing, as if unsure whether forgiveness still applied. Tomas stayed only one night. He learned enough. The remembering road did not invent grievances. It completed them. Every unresolved promise, every half-chosen path, every silent retreat from courage resurfaced, not as memory, but as obligation. People woke, knowing what they owed, and many could not pay. Further along the road, Tomas encountered a town that had solved the problem. They had stopped choosing. The town of Lorne was quiet in the way cemeteries were quiet, maintained, orderly, unnaturally calm. No arguments, no raised voices, no visible grief. The elder explained it with practiced patience. "When the remembering began," she said, "we learned that choice invites debt. So we removed it." "How?" Tomas asked. The elder gestured toward the square. Every door bore identical markings. Every person wore the same undyed cloth. Bells hung at each corner of the town, but none were rung. They were decorative now, stripped of authority. "No one marries," the elder continued. "No one leaves. No one vows. We perform necessary labor and nothing more." "And are you at peace?" Tomas asked. She smiled. It was a careful expression, rehearsed. "We are finished," she said. That night, Tomas dreamed of Alric. His brother stood in the monastery vault, the reliquary between his hands. Monks watched silently as Alric knelt, lips moving in prayer that asked for endurance, not wisdom. When Tomas woke, he knew the dream was not prophecy. It was memory traveling faster than sound. Back at the monastery, Alric had returned alone. The abbot did not ask why. The reliquary was placed on the altar beneath heavy cloth. The monks spoke of restoration, of returning dangerous relics to controlled sanctity. They spoke of ringing the bell fragment just once to settle the fractures spreading through the borderlands. Alric listened. He told himself this was not choice, this was duty. On the remembering road, Thomas learned the bell's true history. In a ruined scriptorium buried beneath ivy and bone-dry leaves, he found records not meant for sermons. The bell had not been created to summon God. It had been created to end arguments. The first kingdoms had nearly torn themselves apart, not from war, but from hesitation. Generations trapped between vengeance and forgiveness, reform and tradition, departure and loyalty. The bell collapsed in decision. It rang once, and the world agreed on what had been. Thousands of lives ended, not violently but conclusively. People whose existences depended on unresolved conditions simply ceased. Widows without marriages, rebels without causes, kings without crowns. History stabilized and shrank. The bell had not been rung since. Thomas staggered out of the scriptorium with shaking hands. The road narrowed as he approached its end. Stone gave way to ancient paving worn smooth by feet that had turned back more often than they had continued. At the terminus stood a tower. No bell. Only hooks. Scars in the stone where something vast and final had once hung. Thomas felt the fragment pulse through the reliquary he now carried, each vibration syncing with his heartbeat. At the same moment, far behind him, the monastery bells began to ring. Not the bell fragment, the others, calling monks to assembly, calling Alric to act. Tomas climbed the tower steps and looked out over the road that remembered, villages, towns, lives trembling under the weight of truth. If the bell rang again, all of this would end, cleanly, quietly, and forever. Tomas lifted the fragment. Below, in the valley, he heard a bell begin to sound. Not yet whole, not yet finished. The world held its breath. So did he. The bell never rang, but the door was always there.